Hi, folks. Thanks for coming and joining us today. We're just going to give everyone a minute or so to come on in the webinar here before we get started. How's everyone's week been so far? We've had some stellar weather. I hope you all have been able to enjoy it. And with that, let us begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Technology Tuesdays. My name is Lydia Nimke, and I'm the adult librarian at the Tippecanoe branch of the Milwaukee Public Library, and I am very excited to bring you today's presentation on Microsoft Word. You all are muted and have your cameras turned off by default, but please don't let that stop you from asking any questions you may have about today's presentation in the Q&A box down below. With us today in the background, we have the wonderful Beth Gabriel from the East Branch.
Hi, everyone. I hope you are all well today. I'm here to help Lydia out. If you have any questions for her, make sure to put those in the Q&A so I can read them out loud. You can do that throughout the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Let's jump in and talk about some of the main concepts we'll be covering today. So first of all, we'll talk about how to access Word through Office 365, that free service we talked some about last week. And we'll just do like a general interface tour. Then we'll talk about how you'll actually create a document or open a document that you've made previously. Then we're going to be talking about the actual formatting of a document, and that's going to take up a big chunk of what we're going to do today. So there'll be some major takeaways from the formatting Word document realm. And then finally, we'll talk about some editing tools you may want to use. Today's presentation can't possibly cover everything. I could really talk to you for hours about this, but it's really just meant to be a brief introduction. Tech Tuesdays in general is, and I will give you a really great resource I've found and name some others at the end of our time today if you're interested in learning more. So, Microsoft Word is a word processing application that allows you to create a variety of documents, including letters, resumes, papers, and more. In this section, we're going to get more familiar with its most important features, in my mind, and learning where things are in the ribbon at the top of the Word application. Word files are called documents, and you'll hear them referred to generally as documents and not necessarily as Word files. You'll open Word by logging into office.com with your Microsoft account information. Just like we did last week to access Outlook and Outlook Calendar, pretty much the same way, but we'll definitely go over that again. Once you're on the home page, you'll go to the toolbar on the left and click to open Word, which has the same icon as is in the middle of the screen here. Whenever you start a new project in Word, you'll need to create a new blank document, which can be a blank document or it can be from a template. So you can just fill in and have a lot of the formatting and stuff already set up for you. I'll also show you all how to open an existing document. Like I mentioned, we're going to talk a lot about formatting the document, but we aren't necessarily going to be talking about things like inserting images, doing title pages, page breaks, headings, and like a lot more because Word has a lot of features. If you have specific questions on any of those items or you're not sure if I'm going to mention something you really have been interested to know, please drop those questions in the Q&A. And if there's enough interest, we may just end up doing a more advanced Tech Tuesdays on Word at some point in the future. So when you open Word for the first time from Office, you'll see this start screen appear. From here, you'll be able to create a new blank document or choose a template. If you click on this new blank document here, you'll be taken instantly into a Word document that you can edit as you see fit. So Word actually uses a tabbed ribbon system instead of traditional menus. So it's not going to be a bunch of drop-down menus each time you navigate through the options for customization here. They'll just change this ribbon up here at the top as you click along each of these options. For example, the Home tab, which we're on right now, and you can tell by that blue underline beneath the word Home, you can see we have options for editing our font, the font type, the font size, the styling, options for highlighting and changing the color of our text. We have options for adding in a list, a bulleted list or a numbered list. We also have our options for alignment. These are options for setting the heading and the styling throughout the document. We can find and replace and search for words and phrases through our document, as well as dictate. So, speak through a microphone into your computer and Word will write what you say. We have an editor tool over here, which has a lot of stuff to help you make your whatever you're writing better. And the design tool over on the left here. And then a menu option for even more customization. We'll definitely talk more about all of these in the demonstration portion, but one really important thing that we haven't mentioned is this little line right here. And this is called the insertion point. And it's at this point that you're able to add your text. It's a blinking vertical line in your document. And this indicates where you can enter text on the page. When a new blank document opens, the insertion point will appear in the top left corner of the page. And if you want to, you can begin typing right from that location. You can also add spaces to move that insertion point in. You can also add new paragraphs by pressing the Enter key or the Return key on your keyboard. And you can also place this insertion point manually. And you'll do that after you have, some text on your page. You can click anywhere in that text to move the insertion point. And then finally, you can use your arrow keys to move the insertion point left or right. or up or down between lines. One important thing that I want to draw attention to before we get into formatting the document is selecting text. Because before you can move or format text, you need to be able to select it. To do this, you click and drag your mouse over the text you want to select, and then release the mouse. A highlighted box will then appear over that selected text. That looks something like this. And from there, you can edit that text and format it as fits your needs. So let's go into Word now and make sure we can all access it before we go into formatting the documents. So here I am at office.com after I've already logged in to my Microsoft account. Over on the left-hand side here, we're going to click on the Word icon. Just like last week, we clicked for Outlook, we're going to use Word this time. And here we can see that button for a new blank document. It looks like they're having trouble loading templates right now, but the template should be in the middle here. And our recent documents are down below. So we're going to click on this new blank document first. And that opens up a blank document for us. Now, like I mentioned, that insertion point, that blinking vertical line is over on the left here. And that from there we can start typing. So just to give you all a general tour of the interface itself, starting in the top left corner, here it says it's document 1. Now, until you name a document in Word, it's generally going to be called document and then a number behind it. To change the name of this document, we'll just click on where it says document 1 for the file name and name it whatever is appropriate. All Word documents have the file type of .docx at the end of them, if it's a recent version of Word. We see this file is saved to OneDrive. So that means it's saved automatically. We don't really have to do anything as far as saving our work because it's all saved automatically to the cloud. And we can access this Word document from anywhere we have internet access. Now, coming down below, we have the File button, which is pretty much the same. If you've used any other version of Word, you have your ability to create a new document here, see some templates, see some recent files, open files as well. If you wanted to save this document as a PDF or some other different file type, you could do that as well. And this is also where you would go to print a document if you wanted to do that, or share it, share the link to the document with others. Under Home, like we mentioned, we kind of went through this before. You have your options for changing the font, as well as lists and alignment. And here are the styles for your documents formatting. The Find button, Dictate, editor, and designer. We're mainly going to stay in the Home tab today, but I do just want to quickly show you all the Insert tab is where you would go to put anything in your document that's not just words, right? So if you wanted to put in a page break, a table, or a picture, you could do that as well. A drawing or a hyperlink, which might be very useful. Even an online video, you could do that as well. To change the layout of your document, you're going to go to the Layout tab, and you see all of these options have changed. Each time we click on a new tab, we get a whole slew of new options for customizing our document. For references, this is really great and helpful if you're writing papers or anything, any research, things of that nature. Under review, you can see a lot of information about your document itself, like the word count. You can check accessibility, track changes, and things of that nature. And then under the View tab, you can change how zoomed in you are. You can see the ruler and switch to a reading view. If you're reading a very, very long document, you might not want to see the ribbon at all. And then if we go back to Word, if we're, cool on this document, remember there's nothing to save because it's automatically saved to the OneDrive. If we want to go back to Word, we can click the grid menu in the far upper left-hand corner, and we can actually access all of our apps from here. We can click Word again, and we see our example document is saved right there. And if we have any documents that we've made previously, we can open those as well. So let's jump back to talk about formatting the document. Formatted text can draw the reader's attention to specific parts of the document and emphasize important information. In Word, you have several options for adjusting text, including font, size, and color, alignment, spacing, and things like that. And we're going to talk about them today. So font size, as it sounds, changes how big or small the font in your document appears. So the letters. The smaller the font number, the smaller the size of the text will be. The larger the font number, the larger the size of the text will be. So if this is a font 40, this is a font 10, and that's pretty much how it goes. For all of these changes, I am going to be showing you some of the steps for how to make them. The first step is always to select the text you want to modify. And it's listed on each of these slides, but I might, just glaze over it. But the first step is to select the text you want to modify. Then, if you want to change your font, you'll click the font size drop-down arrow and select the font size that you want. Again, if you want to make it bigger, you'll choose a larger number than was originally there, smaller number. Once you click that number, the font size will change in the document. You can also use the grow font and the shrink font commands to change the font size to kind of see what looks best if you don't know offhand what font size you want it to be. Another thing you can change is the font type. So by default, the font of each new document is set to Calibri, which I'm not sure I'm pronouncing right, but CALIBRI. But Word provides you with a bunch of other fonts to use. These aren't Word fonts necessarily, they're just an example of some of the fonts that live out there in the world. Again, on the Home tab, you're going to click the drop-down arrow next to the font box after you select the text you want to change, and a menu of the different font styles will appear. You'll just select the font style you want to use, and the change will appear in your document. Now, just a note, when you're creating a professional document or a document that it contains multiple paragraphs and it's going to be read by many people, you'll want to select a font that's easy to read. Along with Calibri, other standard reading fonts include Cambria, Times New Roman, Arial, things like that. If you're just making a sign to, let your delivery person know to drop your packages off on your back porch instead of your front porch, doesn't really matter. But if you're making a resume or you're submitting an essay to get into a fellowship program or something like that, then it really matters what font you choose. How silly would it look if you picked Elliot 6 or Griffin for your resume? It would look a little odd. But if that's your creativity, I mean, you can do whatever you'd like, honestly, but that's just a note. You may also want to change the font color, which is very simple and similar to the steps we've previously outlined. After you select the text, you'll click the font color drop-down arrow, and then all your pre-existing options for font color appear, and you can select the one you want. But your color choices aren't limited to what's in the drop-down menu. If you click select more colors at the bottom, you'll see a color picker where you can customize the lightness and the darkness of the color and pretty much choose any color that exists, or you can even pick the hexadecimal color code and put that in there if you know specifically what color you want as well. So bold, italic, and underline are all really important graphic highlighting tools to use when you want to draw attention to important words or phrases. After you select the text here, you're going to click the B for bold, and it's a bolded B, an italic I for italic, or an underlined U for underline. And then the selected text will be modified in your document. You also may want to highlight your text if it's a active document that you're actively working on and adding to throughout multiple days' time. You may want to highlight some things. I use highlighting a lot when I haven't finished something, but I've decided to move on to something else in the document. I do a lot of proposals for programs and things of that nature. And in the past, when I would have to work out my budget, I would, maybe not know how much a specific thing cost or a specific performer wanted to charge us. So I'd highlight that budget area and say, come back to this in all caps once I had more details. It's also really useful for if you're creating a document that has action items for the reader. If you're drafting an offer letter, say to a person who you're going to hire, and you want to make sure that with them they bring their social security card and their driver's license on their first day of work, you could make sure to highlight that portion in their offer letter, right? So again, you'll click the text highlight color drop down arrow and select your desired color. There are a bunch of them to choose from. And then once that item you've forgotten or you haven't gotten to yet, you've completed it, you can take away the highlight as well. Text alignment is a way to make your document seem really polished and to kind of change it for your purposes. I have some examples of alignment on the next slide, but by default, Word aligns text to the left margin in new documents, but again, there are going to be some times where you want to adjust text alignment to the center or the right. You can select one of the 4 alignment options in the paragraph group, and we'll talk about those now. So align text left aligns all selected text to the left margin. So it's butted right up against like an imaginary line called the margin on the left side here. Align, this is the most common alignment and is selected by default when a new document is created. It's kind of a given that in most professional circumstances, most academic circumstances, your document would be aligned to the left. Center alignment aligns text in equal distance from the left and the right. So almost, this one, it's almost as if the imaginary line is in the center. For align text right, text is aligned to the right margin. So that looks a little different, but could be a great use of space, maybe if you have a picture on the left-hand side. And then just justify is equal on both sides. It lines up equally to the left and the right margins. And many newspapers and magazines actually use justification to create those nice little columns that you see that are, you know, all in a line, all in a row column. As you design your document and make your formatting decisions, you'll need to consider line and paragraph spacing as well. Line spacing is the space between each line in a paragraph, and Word allows you to customize this to be single spaced maybe, which is 1 line high, double spaced, which is 2 lines high, or really any other amount you want. The default spacing in Word is 1.08 lines, which is just slightly larger than single spaced. In the image to the left of the slide here, you can compare the different types of line spacing. So from left to right, the image shows default line spacing, single line spacing, and double line spacing. Double line spacing is, again, what all the professors wanted in college, to be able to like write feedback in between, I think. I don't know for a fact, but that's what was required while I was in college. To format line spacing, you select the text you want to format as such. And this is a really good one to do before you even start typing, because you can do any of these things I've mentioned before you start typing, and it will just apply to the whole document. Select the text you want to format, click the line and paragraph spacing command, and then select your desired line spacing. For your paragraph spacing, just like you can format spacing between lines in your document, you can adjust spacing before and after paragraphs. This is useful for separating paragraphs, headings, and subheadings. You'll select the paragraph or paragraphs you want to format. And then again, on that same line and paragraph spacing command, you'll click add space before paragraph or remove space before or after paragraph from the drop-down menu to save yourself some space or add some more space if you need it. again, this is a similar one to the line spacing. If you know you need a double-spaced document with a space before and after the paragraph, it may behoove you to do that before you even start typing. But if you forget, don't worry, because you can always change the formatting of your document. So no worries there. The last thing we'll talk about before we head into demo is bulleted and numbered lists. And these can be used in your documents to format, arrange, and emphasize different text. If you are writing a letter, say, and you have this super long sentence that says, you know, I needed you to water the plants and clean the garage and wash the dog and buy the cat's food. You could change that into a list if you wanted, and it would probably be a little bit easier to read. You can have bulleted or numbered lists. If there is a specific order to things, numbered lists are always the way to go. If it's kind of up in the air, just a random unsorted list, you can use the bullets as well. And there is a drop down for bulleted lists and a separate one for numbered lists. And both of these will allow you to create a multi-level list. So if under I needed you to water the plants, I could have a part 2 of water the plants, that is water the Ficus elastica and the pothos or something, to provide more details on that or give more instruction, whatever the case may be. And you'll just do that by hitting the tab after you've made your list. So let's go see some of these things in practice on this document we have here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you all can see. We want to get this document to look more like this document. This document, or this, set of words here has a lot of styling, but the one above is really, really plain and doesn't have like anything extra. I think it's a little hard to read, and it could be easier to read. So the first thing we're going to do is change some things about the font. Now, before we do that, we have to select what we would change. We can select by dragging and dropping. So I am clicking and not letting go until I get over here where I've highlighted whatever I need to, and then letting go. And from there, we can change the font type. If we want to see a different kind of font here, we can scroll down and see what we've got. Okay, that looks good. And we can change the font size in the next drop-down menu by selecting the number or by typing the number or by using the grow font size button and the shrink font size button. Trying to make this a little bigger for you all. Cool. The next thing we can change is the color. And I want to, again, make sure to select just the font I want to change. The default font color to change things to is red, but as you see, the default font color you type is actually black. So we can make it red. If we don't like red, we have all of these other colors to choose from. And if we don't like any of these colors here, we can click the More Colors option at the bottom of this menu, and we can get as detailed with the colors as we want. And then for styling, we can really do a lot with the bold, italic, and underline button. So again, let's select the text we want, and then we'll click on the bold button. I think I want all the times that are in this document to be italic, so we can do that. And if you're a shortcuts person, like if you like the keyboard shortcuts, you can press Control B, Control I, and Control U to do all that like in your flow of typing. Or you can come up to the ribbon here and do it that way as well. Whatever way you're most comfortable with. And let's bold this part as well. Again, whatever text I select is the one I can make changes to. And then of course, like if you really want to emphasize something to someone, you can select all of them at the same time. Whatever you think looks best and will best suit your needs. Now, in this alternate questions section, say I wanted to be sure to select different alternate questions. I might put in all caps that, but you can't really see that at a glance. So I would definitely select that whole line and click the highlight button. And you've got a lot of different colors to choose from for highlighter as well. You can't pick a custom color, but you can pick like cyan if you want. And then once I picked those new questions, I would remove the highlight and go no color. And for alignment, this is the button for alignment right here. Again, we have to select what we're looking to move or change. Click on alignment, and we can have it in the center, to the right, justified, which doesn't look quite right to me, or left aligned. I think it has to be a full paragraph for justified to really make a difference, because although these may just look like sentences, and technically they are sentences in like, the way humans actually write, according to Word, each one of these lines is a new paragraph. Anytime you press that enter button, it's a new paragraph. And then if we wanted to change the spacing up a little, say this all, I'm going to highlight everything and make it a little bigger. It's kind of just over the 1-page mark. Say I really wanted to have this be on 1 page so that I could, take one sheet with me and be ready to, lead this program. Then we can do things like play with the spacing a little bit. So our line and paragraph spacing options are on towards the right under more options. And then you see under paragraph, you have that line spacing option. And we can make these things single spaced or double spaced, but it's really not going to make too big of a difference here because, like I mentioned, each of these are their own paragraphs. So if we wanted to add a space before the paragraph, we could, but I don't want to add a space before the paragraph. So I'll remove that. Oh no, Word, how dare you? Tech Tuesdays. It's been struggling lately. Are there any questions, Beth, while I try and fix the word?
Let's see. That's okay. Somebody, Maria asked, is this what is called a Google Doc? And I'm assuming that maybe the cloud version of OneDrive is kind of what's making them think that, but that looks like the only question.
Gotcha. Yeah, so quite similar, quite similar. It is a Word document. So if you've ever used like the desktop application of Word on your computer, it is extremely similar. The only difference is it is backed up to the cloud, so you can access it from wherever you have internet access. And you don't have to pay for it. That's a big difference from the Word desktop applications as well. So very similar to Google Drive. Exactly, exactly. Similar, not same thing. You'll definitely find some different features between them as well. Not so much in Word versus Google Docs, but in Excel, you'll see some definite differences. Maria, you asked, is one better than the other? Not really. They're just different. If you're more used to one, I'd say use that one. Word and you know, Office 365 has kind of been more businessy in the last 2 years, more used by corporations and things like that. Whereas Google Drive, which is still used by corporations, is still perfectly professional to use, is used a lot more by teachers and students, I find, their whole suite of products, but they're all used by everyone. So whatever you are more comfortable using is definitely the best for you. Okay,
All right, looks like that is the only question that I see, and they said thank you. So
cool. Let's see if it's working now. I don't even remember what I was talking. I have a list. I was about to talk about lists, I think, or paragraph spacing. We were figuring this out. So we're back to the screen share, I hope. If I'm not, someone tell me.
looks great.
Awesome. At the bottom of the line spacing, you can remove the space before a paragraph or remove the space after a paragraph. So if I click that, a little bit of space went away up here. If I click remove space after paragraph, a little space will go away behind it after the paragraph ends. If I change the line spacing to be double spaced, you see there's a lot more space in between those lines there. If I change it to be single spaced, it goes back to that. Let's see if I have a paragraph somewhere for y'all to see. deal. All right. The last thing we talk about in formatting is lists. So I'm going to move alternate questions over to the right-hand side here and look at our list. So we'll highlight what we want to be in our list. So go ahead and type all your list items out on their own line. And then you can make it a bulleted list like so. And you see lists are quite condensed. They default to being single spaced, I believe. Or you can make it a numbered list. And multi-level lists are super easy to do. If number 3 here was for some reason part A of number 2, just use the tab button on your keyboard to bring that in a little bit, and then it's, 2A. And you see the numbers change automatically depending on what we do. And you could have, a part 1 of part A. You could make it, I think, 2 levels in. If you click the drop-down menu, you can change how your list looks. You can make it have Roman numerals, capital letters, lowercase letters, plain numbers, parentheses, double parentheses, etc. And you can also change how your multi-level lists look. And you can change the bullets as well. If you want your bullets to be smiley faces, I think you should go ahead and make your bullets smiley faces. Awesome. Now we can jump back into our presentation and talk briefly about those awesome editing tools. So after you type and format your document, there's a chance you'll want to edit it after the fact. And this is where some of these cool tools come into play. Tools like spell check. If you're worried about making mistakes when you type, if you're not the best speller, I know I'm not. I depend on spell check as I'm sending these emails and I'm still not great. Spell check is not infallible, but it definitely helps a lot. You just click the underlined word or phrase, which will appear as you're typing, and you'll see the correct spelling or phrase from a list of suggestions. Once you click the correct spelling, it will appear in your document. It'll automatically replace the misspelled word or grammatical error. Like I mentioned, the spelling and grammar check is not always correct, particularly with grammar. There will be a lot of errors that Word won't notice. And there are a lot of times where Word will say something's an error where it's not. My maiden name is a very common word spelled differently. And without fail, no matter how many times I tried to put it in the dictionary or whatever, it would just be like, that's incorrect all the time. But the key thing is that those underlines that show you that it's a misspelled word won't print when you go to print out your document. So it's like just an FYI, you don't have to really do anything about them, or you can click to ignore them if the lines are really bothering you. And I'll show you that in a second. Cut, copy, and paste are also really helpful tools to use. Word allows you to copy text that's already in your document and paste it in other places, which can save you a lot of time and effort. And if you want to move text around in your document, you can cut and paste it or drag and drop it even. So once you copy text in your Word document, you can paste it into an email, You can paste it into a different document if you want. And these are pretty universal instructions and shortcuts. You can use them on almost any website that has text, and copy and paste documents, or copy and paste text from one place to another, and images and GIFs and things like that. So you'll copy text by selecting the text you want to make a copy of, right-clicking and selecting copy from the menu that appears, or using Control C if you are a shortcut fan. Then you'll place the insertion point. So click wherever you want the text to appear in your document. And then again, right-click to bring up a menu to paste the text, or Control V on your keyboard and the text will appear. Deleting text is also something you'll probably want to get familiar with doing. And there are several ways to remove text that you no longer want in your document. You can use the backspace key to delete text one character at a time, and that deletes text going left. You can use the delete key to delete text going right. You can also select all the text you want to remove if you want to remove a whole paragraph, say, or several. Select all that text and then press the delete key and it will all be removed. Or select all that text and then type what you want to replace that text and it will automatically start replacing that old text with a new text. So very quickly, let's get into these editing tools like spell check. So as you can see here, there's a red line under this misspelled phrase or word. If we click on that, you can see it wants to correct this to grandfather spelled correctly. And if we accept this change, we can click the correct spelling and it is corrected for us. And this is an example of a grammatical error. Again, we'll click on the underlined word or phrase, and we see that this is grammar here, and it says double check that you're sticking to to singular or plural, which is helpful advice if I wasn't sure why this was underlined at all. And then we can click on the R to make that change for us. If for some reason you are spelling something different and it's part of the stylistic choice you've made or whatever the case may be, and you don't want to see this red line, you can click on the where that it's marked as wrong and click ignore. Now, for cut and copy, I would make a distinction between those two. So we'll highlight what we want to make a copy of. So copying, we're copying something like as if we were photocopying it. There's going to be two copies in this world once we copy this list here. If we cut it, think of cutting something out of a magazine. It's no longer going to be in the magazine. So we'll copy this first, and then we can paste it somewhere else by putting that insertion point there. And I'm just going to do Control V on my keyboard, and thus it appears. If I select it again, and instead of doing copy this time, choose cut, it's not going to be where it was anymore. So if I decide I'm writing a letter and I accidentally said something that happened yesterday before something that happened 3 days ago, and I want to rearrange things a little bit, I can cut it out and put it where it goes chronologically, for example. And I can still paste things that I've cut other places in the document. And finally, just deleting text. There you can use the backspace button to delete things one at a time. You can use the delete button to delete things kind of going forward. You can highlight as much as you want, or sorry, select as much as you want and push the delete button or the backspace button. And if you accidentally delete something or change something and you're like, oh my gosh, I did not mean to do that, there is a handy dandy undo button up in the left hand corner, and you can click on that to bring things back a few steps. And you can do it quite a few times. And if you happen to go back too many steps, there's also a redo button. So you can change things up like that. All right. I know we went through that last portion really quick. Are there any questions?
Let's see. I'm not seeing any additional ones in the chat or the Q&A. So if anyone does have a question, now's your time.
I do want to share with you all well, that's not it. We can close that. The course I used to create some of this presentation today. It's from gcfglobal.org and was quite useful, and I think broke things down really, really well. And then also, if you are interested in learning more about Word, I would highly recommend Gale Courses, which is a database that the library offers. And I could get you all a link to that one as well. If you haven't checked out any of the library's databases, there are some really good applications for learning languages, for learning technical skills, for writing, and learning things like QuickBooks and stuff like that. So I would highly recommend that as well. All right, if there are no further questions, you all know you can look forward to receiving a follow-up email from me in the next few days with a link to a recording of this presentation. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out. If you are working through some of these classes and you have some questions, my email is on the screen, lcnimke@milwaukee.gov, and I'm always happy to help. I'm also at the Tippecanoe branch of the Milwaukee Public Library, so feel free to stop in and visit, and we can work on it there as well. Up next, we have Microsoft Excel, which should be a really fun one for all you data science people out there. I'll do my best to make you proud. I hope some of you will join us for that. Overall, thank you all so much for joining us today. I didn't look up Eudora, Albert. I'm going to look it up right after this. Thank you for reminding me. everyone have it, and I will talk to you about it next week. Everyone have a great rest of your week, and I will see the Excel. I will see you next Tuesday. The Excel will be on next Tuesday, Maria. Thanks for checking in. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.